It's August 10th, 1628. Stockholm's harbor is alive with excitement as thousands gather to witness the launch of the Vasa, Sweden's grand new warship. The Vasa, adorned with vibrant sculptures and bristling with cannons, is a symbol of national pride and royal ambition. As the final ropes are cast off, cheers erupt. The ship glides into the water, a floating palace in the sun. Suddenly, a gust of wind fills the sails. The Vasa leans sharply to one side. The crowd's joy turns to horror as water pours through the open gun ports. The ship tilts further, unable to recover. In less than 20 minutes, the pride of Sweden vanishes beneath the waves, taking with it the hopes of a nation and many lives. Silence falls over the harbor. The spectacle has become a catastrophe. The Vasa, years in the making, is gone, sunk just a kilometer from shore. How could such a magnificent project end in disaster? The story of the Vasa is a lesson in ambition, human error, and the unforgiving laws of nature. What went wrong? To answer that, we must look back at the forces that built her. The Vasa's fate was sealed long before her maiden voyage. This is the story of how a dream became a disaster, and how the world would never forget. Early 17th century Europe is at war. Sweden, led by King Gustavus Adolphus, seeks dominance over the Baltic Sea. Control of the Baltic means control of trade, wealth, and power. The king, known as the Lion of the North, dreams of a navy that will intimidate enemies and impress allies. He orders a fleet of new warships, with the Vasa as its crown jewel. The Vasa is more than a weapon. It's a floating symbol of royal authority and national ambition. The king demands the best, more cannons, grander design, and unmatched size. The ship is named for the royal house of Vasa, tying its fate to the dynasty itself. But war with Poland-Lithuania puts pressure on the project. The king wants his flagship ready, fast. Corners are cut, warnings ignored, and the rush to launch overshadows practical shipbuilding. The Vasa becomes a vessel of ambition, built in haste and under immense pressure. The stage is set for a disaster born from the very ambition that inspired her. In the quest for greatness, caution is left behind. The consequences will be devastating. The Vasa was meant to be a marvel, powerful, beautiful, and imposing. Dutch shipwright Henrik Hubertson's original design was for a balanced, sturdy vessel. But the king demanded more: a second gun deck, more cannons, and lavish decorations. The ship grew taller and heavier, its upper structure rising high above the water. 64 bronze cannons and over 700 sculptures transformed the Vasa into a floating fortress and royal palace. The stern castle was a masterpiece of Baroque art, meant to awe all who saw it. But these features made the ship dangerously top-heavy. The Vasa pushed the limits of shipbuilding, combining immense firepower with towering height and ornate detail. On paper, it was the ultimate warship. In reality, it was an untested experiment. The very qualities that made the Vasa unique also made her unstable. The seeds of disaster were sown in her design. No one fully understood the risks until it was too late. From the start, the Vasa's construction was troubled. Shipwrights relied on tradition, not science, to guide their work. When Hubertson died, his assistant was left to interpret plans and meet the king's ever-changing demands. The king insisted on a second gun deck, forcing builders to add height and weight to a hull never meant to support it. The ship became top-heavy, but no one dared challenge the king. The war's urgency meant there was no time for careful review or correction. Shipwrights worked under relentless pressure, sacrificing caution for speed. The Vasa was an experiment, untested, rushed, and built on royal command. Practical wisdom was overruled by ambition. The result, a ship with a narrow base and a towering, heavy superstructure. The warning signs were there, but ignored. The Vasa was a disaster waiting to happen. And the countdown had already begun. The Vasa's fate was sealed by physics. A ship's stability depends on a low center of gravity and enough ballast deep in the hull. The Vasa's second gun deck, heavy cannons, and ornate sculptures raised her center of gravity dangerously high. The ballast was insufficient to counteract the weight above. The ship's metacentric height, the measure of stability, was perilously small. Once the Vasa began to lean, she had almost no ability to right herself. The lower hull was too small to support the massive structure above. Shipwrights lacked the scientific tools to predict these effects. They were building in the dark, guided by tradition, not calculation. The Vasa was a magnificent experiment, fatally flawed from the start. The laws of physics would not be denied. Disaster was inevitable. Before launch, a simple stability test was performed. 30 men ran across the Vasa's deck. The ship rocked so violently, the test was stopped after just 3 runs. Admiral Fleming saw the danger. The ship was clearly unstable. The logical choice was to halt the launch and make changes. But the king was waiting. Foreign dignitaries were watching, and canceling would mean public humiliation. Under immense pressure, Fleming ignored the warning. Preparations for the maiden voyage continued. The risks were obvious, but pride and politics prevailed. The Vasa would sail, despite the clear evidence of disaster. The final warning had been given and ignored. The fate of the Vasa was sealed by human pride as much as by design. The world would soon witness the consequences. August 10, 1628. The Vasa is launched amid celebration. Sails unfurled, cannons ready, the ship glides from the royal palace. The lower gun ports are open to fire a salute, a fatal mistake. On board, 150 people, including sailors' families, enjoy the spectacle, unaware of the danger. The ship moves slowly, cheered by thousands on shore. A gentle breeze fills the sails as the Vasa leaves the harbor's shelter. Suddenly, a stronger gust hits. The ship heels to port. The tilt grows worse. The Vasa cannot right herself. Water pours through the open gun ports. The crowd's cheers turn to horror as the ship capsizes in slow motion. In moments, the pride of Sweden is doomed. The celebration becomes a tragedy. The Vasa's final journey is over almost before it began. As the Vasa leaned, water flooded the lower deck through the open gun ports. The added weight pulled the ship over further. There was no recovery. Panic erupted on board as people scrambled for safety. Cannons and equipment slid across the decks, adding to the chaos. Below, water trapped those who couldn't escape. The Vasa was undone not by battle, but by her own design. In less than 20 minutes, the ship vanished beneath the waves. Rescue boats rushed to save survivors, but many lives were lost. The disaster was a national humiliation. An inquiry followed, but no one was found guilty. The blame lay with the flawed design, driven by royal ambition. The Vasa's sinking was a lesson written in tragedy. The world would never forget. The Vasa's sinking forced a revolution in shipbuilding. It showed the world the dangers of ignoring science and stability. Shipwrights began to use mathematics and physics, not just tradition, to design safer vessels. For over 300 years, the Vasa lay preserved in the Baltic's cold waters. In 1961, she was raised, almost intact, a time capsule from the 17th century. The salvage and preservation became a triumph of modern engineering. Today, the Vasa is displayed in Stockholm, a breathtaking window into the past. More than 98% of the ship is original, its sculptures and size awe-inspiring. The Vasa is no longer a symbol of failure, but of learning and discovery. Her story teaches us about ambition, error, and the need for wisdom. The lessons of the Vasa have made ships and people safer for centuries. Her journey through history is far greater than her brief voyage at sea. In failure, the Vasa found immortality.